Hi there, welcome to Floating in Dreams. This is going to be a tea time chat all about price and quality. Welcome to everybody watching today. Thank you so very much for joining me. This video is one I like to do once a month because it's good to have a chat about some things I see going on in the makeup industry. And I do this while I'm sharing my thoughts while having a cup of tea. So maybe you grab yours, or maybe you grab another drink because it's a different time of day where you're at. Who knows? But I've got myself a cup of tea, and I just got home from work, and I thought I could quickly come on here to film a video. So yeah, if the makeup isn't looking perfect, this has been on since 8 a.m. this morning, so it's not gonna look perfect, you guys. But I just thought I could come on here to share my thoughts with you all about the price of makeup and then the quality of the makeup that we expect, get, etc., etc. So let me get stuck in. Before we get into the video though, it may be good to know who I am if you've never been to my channel. My name is Maaike, I live in the Netherlands, I have fair skin with a cool to neutral undertone, and this greatly influences how I feel about makeup. I have been reviewing makeup for more than a decade. I love trying out Essence and Catrice, eyeshadow palettes, and getting the use out of my makeup. So if that's something you're interested in, maybe you would like to consider subscribing. So I come to these videos unscripted, unprepared. I just sit down and have a chat with you guys as if we're having a chat amongst friends while sharing a cup of tea. That's usually like the way I feel about these videos. And I know that a lot of people in the comments feel this way as well. So please participate in the conversation by leaving your comments down below. I love reading your input and like having the conversation, like continuing the conversation in the comments. And one of the reasons why I think I wanted to talk about this topic of like price versus quality in makeup is because I recently showed you a haul where I posted, like it was a very small haul, but it had some pricey items in. And there were plenty of people who were leaving comments on that video saying, oh, these items are far too expensive for me, I would never spend my money on that, or hey, I'm glad you are trying these out so I don't have to spend the money on them. And as time progresses, I also feel that makeup is starting to become more expensive, it seems. So I just wanted to talk to you about like quality of makeup and the price point that brands charge you at and all that jazz. So when it comes to that haul I shared, the comments were mainly about Ensley, which is an indie brand. And for me, as a person who lives in the European Union, I, like regardless of what the palette costs flat rate, there are usually shipping and handling fees that are thrown into the mix if I were to order through the brand's official website. So I like to go through a intermediary, and the intermediary here in the European Union for a lot of US-based indie brands is called Monolith, and they charge a little bit more to account for the shipping and handling fees. They still have to pay, of course, but it's not marked up like hugely. Not to the point where I'm like, it would not be worth it to like wait for Monolith to get the product and like order it straight from the brand, because straight from the brand will be quicker. But these indie brands very often don't have like a deal with postal services or delivery services, so you're gonna pay by weight, which makes it a lot more expensive in terms of shipping. And then of course you're gonna have to pay handling fees and custom fees on top of it if it's from outside of your territory. If you were to order from European brands, if you're in the US, you're gonna be hit with these charges as well. I know Canadians get hit with these charges if they order from the US, or if US citizens order something from Canada, it can happen too. And that's just to do with like the way customs work and world economics, you could say. So there's no way to go around them. And I know that for a lot of people, that's actually one of the reasons why they don't buy these indie brands, is because things get expensive because of the shipping. So it's not just even like the price of the actual product versus then the quality we expect to get. Depending on where you live, makeup is going to cost you more or less, depending on the brand you want to shop for and what you are looking for. I personally live in what I like to call a makeup desert. The Netherlands isn't exactly known to be a country that's very makeup forward, even though everybody knows Nikkie tutorials usually, and like nobody wears makeup like that in this country. If you just walk around the streets, you see very little makeup being worn by most people. So we don't have all the cool brands. We don't have Sephora. And a lot of the brands that a lot of people are raving about, especially online, I have to go abroad to find them if they even ship here to begin with. And the brands we do get are more expensive. So I remember back in the day when ABH had the Modern Renaissance, a lot of people in the US were raving about how affordable it was compared to Urban Decay. It was like $42 at the time. They're more expensive now, I'm sure. But when they launched, it was like $42, and we couldn't get Anastasia because the brand wasn't available here yet. But then when they eventually did become available, the exact same palette, the Modern Renaissance, was like 55 or 57 euros, and it was the same price as an Urban Decay Naked palette. So the argument that a lot of US beauty influencers were using for, oh, but this palette is like so much more affordable than the Urban Decay ones, for us, if I were to buy them from my own local store, it just wouldn't fly, because to me it was just as expensive. And then, you know, your perception of like price and quality is going to be influenced. So I definitely think that depending on where you live, like your location and the prices you're used to paying are very much going to factor into how you feel about what the quality of makeup should be and what price you would like to pay for that. So I definitely feel that it's a very subjective element that comes into it, which is why I wanted to make it part of the discussion, you could say. So yeah, so what might be affordable to one person may not be super affordable as well, not just based on their location, but also just budget-wise. We all have different budgets, and we try to stick within those. Like, I've always been of the opinion, like, if there is an expensive product I like the look of, I'd rather try and save up money to buy that one more expensive thing, or like see if I can free up space in my budget for it, than buying like a cheaper knockoff and like buying the more affordable version. Because I've done this in the past where, you know, I would then buy the less expensive version, but then I would still end up buying the more expensive one in the end. So I was like, I spend more money trying to chase down the dupes than I do buying the original more expensive product as well. But those are, again, personal preferences. That's not something that I can decide for you. That's something that you need to decide for yourself. I know plenty of people who feel happy paying more affordable price points and never look any further than, you know, the drugstore, and they're happy with their makeup choices. And if that's you, that's absolutely fine as well. But I do feel that we all have a different sense of what makeup is worth and what we like paying for things. And, you know, as times change, as economics change, the prices have changed too. Because I definitely think that slowly but surely things are definitely getting more expensive. You can definitely see this within the drugstore. I definitely feel that certain brands like L'Oreal and Maybelline are pushing it. I remember like back in the day, Maybelline and L'Oreal being very affordable for a lot of people. Over here, they were already pretty expensive, but they only have gotten more expensive as time went on. Like one of the newer L'Oreal foundations I tried, the Serum Foundation, was 25 euros easily, which is then drugstore. So price point wise, I definitely feel that what we would typically consider to be like drugstore and high end is definitely fading when it comes to just having a cutoff point when it comes to a price point level. I mean, easily a L'Oreal or Maybelline mascara is going to set you back 20 euros, which is not that much less than a mascara by a MAC or a Dior, because I think those are still like around the 35 euro mark. So I feel that especially in the more affordable category, we've seen more of the effect of inflation and those kind of things, and there's more, like, it's almost as if they use more of a margin, whereas I feel that price points for more expensive makeup has been quite steady. Like, sure, there's a couple of euros that has been added over time, but it's not as drastic of a change, I feel, than with brands like, you know, L'Oreal and Maybelline and those kind of things. So I definitely feel that category-wise, we still have some very affordable makeup brands. I'm talking Essence, I'm talking Wet n Wild. Those kind of brands are still incredibly affordable. But I also feel like even a brand like e.l.f. is pushing it, especially the brand or the items by that brand that a lot of creators tend to focus on, which are all the products that look like more expensive things, have definitely pushed up the price of what you pay for an e.l.f. product by now. So I feel like e.l.f. is the new NYX in a way, because like e.l.f. is getting so much hype, but they have so many products now that I do feel are pushing it. Like, I remember back in the day, e.l.f. was, you know, the white packaging was like what, $1, €1. If I paid, like, I had to buy it from France. I remember the first time I could ever buy e.l.f. was through France. And you had the white line and you had the black line, and the white line was like €1.50 each. And I think the black line was like 3 to 5. And there were some really nice things in those lines, but they have definitely been changing their quality and their packaging and all that. And they, of course, are known for doing all of these dupes. But something like the Halo Glow that is easily 15 euros over here, I mean, I find that quite expensive for a brand that I feel started off being even cheaper than Essence and Catrice for me. And of course, Essence and Catrice isn't as affordable in the US as it is over here. I feel that especially Catrice is marked up quite a bit in the US if I look at their prices. So yeah, it depends on, like I said, location, markups are gonna happen, and I feel that very often if I have US viewers coming to my channel, because very often US viewers seem to only be familiar with the way things work in their country and how much things cost there. They don't realize that other places have a very different way of organizing things, and that's why what might seem very affordable to you, like, I'll get comments saying like, oh, but you can just buy this. I'm like, that's not even a brand here. Like, no, I cannot buy that because it's not available. So even like based on availability and whether things are going to be easy to get your hands on, that's also going to affect price point, which is why I'm personally really happy with a website like Monolith that allows me to get my hands on these indie brands that are marked up just a touch, but not too much to the point where it's going to defeat the point of like ordering it straight from the brand, because paying the shipping and handling fees myself would be much more expensive. Like, you can easily add like another 45 euros to your order, and you know, then the affordable 40 euro indie brand product is going to cost you close to 100. This actually happened to the Makeup by Mario Ethereal Eyes. The palette was only made available within European Sephora's earlier this year. So when it was re-released last fall, and when I had been eyeing it up, because I had missed out on it when it first was launched, and I had just been indecisive about it. So when I saw it coming back, I was like, right, I want to buy this palette. And the only place I could find it at was the official Makeup by Mario website, and they ship from the US. So I paid nearly 100 euros for that palette, because I think it retails for like 65 or 70 euros on the website, and then I had to pay like 25 euros in shipping fees, so it was like 95 euros or something like that. I wasn't hit with additional customs when it came, so that was part of the price point, but paying almost 100 euros, whereas people in the US can get it for far cheaper, you know, that's going to alter how you view a product, and you're going to have different expectations of it if you've paid this much money. And it's also something I've heard people say about ColourPop is, you know, ColourPop is an affordable brand if you're in the US, but if you live anywhere else and you have to order it in, like, you have to jump through hoops to make it sort of the same price point as you would pay for something like just straight up on the website in the US, and you get free shipping. So you need to make sure you order enough so you get free shipping. You have to wait for 25% to 30% discounts, and you have to make sure that the original price point of your order is below 150 euros, so you don't have to pay additional taxes, because you're only allowed to import under 150 euros. And what ColourPop does, and many other brands do this as well, is that they will put the original price of the product on the customs declaration form and not the discount price, which is their prerogative. They need to say what the retail value is of the products, and that means they can list the original price point, because once the discount code is gone, the product is 5 euros again. So they will list that price point. So they're not going to list the discounted price on your customs declaration, which means that you need to make sure that the official, like, original price point together comes to under 100 euros without the discount to make it worth it. And that way you can, I feel you can really sort of dabble around and sort of cheat the system and pay for ColourPop what you would if you were to buy it from the US. If you were in the US, I should say. So yeah, with a lot of these brands, it's just sometimes difficult to get. And just because something is expensive, of course, it doesn't always mean that it is good quality makeup. I have said this a lot in the past. I'm going to repeat it here. There are also like quite a lot of makeup creators, especially on TikTok. I feel Lipstick Lesbians is a great one for this. But also Ask Ellen. She is an Australian beauty creator who I follow on TikTok. Also talks a lot about this. And there are some other like creators on the TikTok platform who are more in the MUA sort of realm, who talk about the quality of products and who know a little bit more about it than like a layman like myself. Like, I'm just like a customer who happens to like chatting about makeup more than the average person, you could say. But I've never been on the product development side of things. But they will tell you, for instance, there's only 3 factories in the world that do lip liners. And of course, they'll manufacture different types of lip liners depending on what brands want. But you can almost tell, especially nowadays also with indie brands, I feel. Like, ever since indie brands became brands that buy formulas from China and then sell it as they're still indie brands, like they're still independently owned. But there was a time where indie makeup meant homemade, by hand pressed eyeshadows, and that's no longer the case. Currently, with indie makeup, I feel it's very much that as long as you can churn out the money to buy a formula and slap a name on it and a design, you can start a makeup brand. And that's definitely something we've only seen in the past couple of years. And I'm not saying that China makes bad makeup. That's not the case. There's a lot of really good makeup that comes out of China. But also, Korea has a lot of makeup factories, the US, Canada, here in Europe. Italy is a really main player when it comes to creating, manufacturing makeup. But there's really only a couple in all of those countries that create everything. And you can definitely tell that certain brands probably use the same factory once you've tried, especially if you've tried as much makeup as I have. And this is why I very often love making content about Kiko. Kiko Milano is an Italian-based makeup brand, and I have said this so many times. I've done comparisons with their products with much more high-end alternatives by places like Laura Mercier and Charlotte Tilbury and Lisa Eldridge, and you can tell that they've probably used the same factory. It's going to be in different packaging. It's not going to be exactly the same formula, but because it was manufactured in the same place, it's going to have that high-end feel. So very often, if people are looking for more affordable makeup, I always steer them towards Kiko, especially if people aren't very familiar with makeup. I always tell them, go to Kiko. Go to Kiko, because if you want Charlotte Tilbury, like high-end performing products, but at half the price, Kiko is your jam. A very underrated brand that I feel should get so much more credit is Zoeva. It's another European-based brand, but their latest set of eyeshadow quads feels and performs like a lot of the luxury brands from Dior and Chanel and Charlotte Tilbury and YSL that I've felt and played with, but they are half the price point compared to the quads of those more luxury brands. So Zoeva is another one of those brands that I feel really does high quality makeup, but because it's not in very exciting colors, it's completely overlooked by a lot of people in the makeup, like especially the online beauty community. Because I definitely feel in the online beauty community, especially with a lot of the creators who are sort of like at the forefront now, it's like what's being pushed a lot is like indie brands and multi-chromes, and everything needs to be exciting. We need chrome flakes, we need yellow highlighters, and I'm like, that's not what most makeup wearers will want to go for. What most people, I think, are looking for in a makeup product is one that performs well, that lasts well on their skin, and that can just look nice. Like, this is a full face of makeup that I've been wearing. The only thing I've done when I got home is reapply my makeup and add a little bit more powder on my under eye area. And that's the kind of makeup I want to wear. I want to be able to wear something that looks nice enough all day. It's makeup, you're gonna sweat, especially if you have oily skin, it's gonna be breaking up things. That's natural and it's gonna happen. You're not gonna have crease-proof makeup for the entire day, especially not if you live in a more humid climate or if temperatures are just a little bit higher where you live. It's just not realistic to expect that from makeup. But I do think that you don't have to pay a lot of money to find good quality makeup, which is why I love doing the Essence and Catrice videos that I like to do. There is one coming up in the next couple of weeks where I will give you the full lowdown now that I've been able to try all of the Essence and Catrice products that were launched for spring summer this year. And like they can do some really good things, and their drop, especially the Essence one this time round, was excellent. They have some really stunning products in there. They are affordable. Yes, the packaging can break really easily. And I know some people really swear not only by the product needs to be good quality, but I also want the experience of using makeup. And if that's you, you're probably going to pay more because the nice packaging, the experience at the counter, those are all things that you're going to pay for. There's a reason why certain brands aren't in Sephora. Because those brands simply don't want to spend the money on like having like sales associates to help people. Like that's I think the only difference nowadays between like drugstore and high-end makeup is the drugstore will not have anyone to help you and you're just going to have to figure it out on your own, whereas high-end luxury brands will have sales associates and makeup artists who can help you figure out what you would like to get. So it depends on your experience level. It depends on your like your needs, your wants, what you want out of your makeup. Not quality-wise, but especially experience-wise. That is what you're paying for mostly when it comes to makeup. I mean, if you look at the base like ingredients of what makeup exists of, like what it is made of, the oils, the mica, the talc that you might find in a lot of powders and stuff. Like eyeshadow is mainly mica. They're very cheap base ingredients, so everything is marked up. Even the stuff at the drugstore is marked up. That's why they can stay afloat. That's why these businesses can survive, is because even a drugstore brand is already being marked up compared to what the cost price for manufacturing the product would be. So if you then think of like other brands, like a Charlotte Tilbury eyeshadow also has the same mica in as the ones from Kiko or whatever. Yeah, so the base ingredients of makeup haven't changed all that much. And sure, there are different ways of how things are manufactured, and I definitely feel that it is high-end brands that like do the innovation in terms of technology, like makeup technology is definitely something that I feel that higher end brands and luxury brands are better at than drugstore brands. It's drugstore brands that will copy it. They're not the ones that innovate, that create the new formulas that we are going to use. It's a brand like House Labs or, you know, the new YSL All Hours. That's where we find the innovation. And then affordable brands that are made in the same factory will after a while get access to a similar formula, and then we also find it at the drugstore. I definitely think that that's how it works. And of course, you can just look at your products. Where are they made? A lot of it is made in Italy. A lot of it is made in Korea. I have found, and this is why I have started trying so much K-beauty in recent years on this channel, I had found out that so many of my favorite Western makeup products were manufactured in Korea. So why not try the actual stuff that's from Korea, So that was my thinking point there. And it is more difficult to figure out what I might like and what not, because I find there are very few creators who speak English who also try a lot of K-beauty. And there are very few of them. I found one on TikTok that I find really enjoyable to watch. Her name is Bronte Marie. So that's how I find a lot of my K-beauty stuff, because she's a lot more into it than I am. And I haven't been able to find a lot of really good creators that can help me find what's the newest of the new there. So I just go by whatever's on YESSTYLE, really. But yeah, that's my decision to try more K-beauty came there from that perspective as well. So I definitely feel that, it really depends on what you're looking for. And with brands that are super expensive, I'm talking like Natasha Denona, Pat McGrath, Tom Ford, Ensley Rain, we are now starting to see more variety in the more pricey things. And with a lot of indie brands, it's definitely down to formula, because indie brands seem to no longer be able to do eyeshadow palettes if it doesn't have a multi-chrome. And having multi-chromes and holochromes and whatever it is that we're having right now, having those in your palette is just going to make the palette more expensive. So there are sometimes people in my comments who say things like, oh, I feel brand so-and-so is a ripoff because they got so much more expensive. I think that with most indie brands, they haven't just upped the price to make more money. They're not trying to be a cash grab. I definitely think it's because they need to keep their margins up if they want to have these high-performing, more expensive formulas in their palettes. Because, I haven't really tried a lot of recent Unearthly palettes, but one thing that is setting me back from trying them again is the fact that I already have 5 palettes by them. But now they've also upped their prices, because when I first purchased from the brand, their palettes were easily 30, 35, maybe 40 euros. Yes, I had to pay for shipping and handling fees, but I didn't mind, because at that price point, if I then get a couple of things, it's still manageable. They are now on monolith, so it is easier for me to buy, but a new Unearthly palette is easily going to be twice as much as it used to be. And yeah, I do want to believe that that's because of a different formula. Whether I like that formula better, though, that's debatable, because I do feel that a lot of the flaky things, the very creamy, buttery, almost liquid feeling eyeshadows that we get from a lot of indie brands are just not my favorite formula. I know a lot of people do like them. I know there are plenty of people who do. But I want shimmers that are easy to pick up with a brush. And very often, I just find it too difficult to pick them up. And then I feel it gets really messy and I have to use fingers. And then people go oh, but I don't mind using fingers. I don't mind using fingers either, but I don't have that much lid space going on. So if I have to use fingers and it's the only way I can make the shadow work, and I lay it down with a finger and then I can't even properly blend it with an eyeshadow brush, to me that makes it very unworkable and just not that realistic, which is one of the reasons why in the past year or so, one of my favorite indie brands that I have found is Gloss Gods, because A, they're based in the EU. So for me, I think it's 10 euros shipping, which is great, no matter how much I purchase from them. So for me, that makes it a lot easier. I know if you're in the US, you're probably going to be yeah, but for me, it's expensive. And yeah, I have that when I buy Unearthly, Juvia's Place, Colourpop, you name it. I'm going to have to pay those extra fees if I buy from those brands directly, if I can't get them in Europe. So that's why I really enjoy that brand. But they also have smaller 12 pans that have the special shades, but it's not the only thing the palette does. It has a really nice mix of textures. So for me, they are really workable shadows. Whereas I tried the Smoky Glam last year from Bella Beauté Bar, and I really enjoyed the palette, but it's super big. It's really, really big. There are a lot of flaky shimmers in that palette, and some of the shimmers just all seemed the same. So I was like, I have this really massive palette. I'd rather have a smaller palette that is therefore then also going to be less expensive. The formula was fine, but I don't know what to do with these really, really overly large palettes. It's just not my vibe. So I also feel that because brands make certain choices, the palettes become more expensive, which they really don't have to be. Plus, if you have a really large palette and it has a mirror and it has a magnetized backing, that's going to add weight when you start shipping it. So if it's a brand you can only buy through their official website, and you're going to have to pay for those shipping and handling fees, it's going to add up. I mean, that was my experience actually with Menagerie, and I haven't bought from them in years because their palettes are so heavy, and I have to pay like $45, like the minimum amount to get a Menagerie palette to my house is like $45 in shipping and handling fees. Easily. So one Menagerie palette is simply going to set me back €100. And then I'm like, do I find that formula worth €100? Yay, nay, So then the decision becomes a much different one than, a Menagerie palette on average is $45. That, I think, is a really stunning price point. And if I then only have to pay $10 for shipping, I'm like, yes, it's worth it. It's definitely worth it, which is how I feel about Gloss Gods, because those palettes are 43 euros, I think, 42.95, and then €10 for shipping. And I'm like, I'm happy to pay that price point, and very often I'll buy like 2 palettes at the same time. And it's wonderful. It's stunning. It works every single time. And I can imagine why some people will be like, yeah, but if I buy Gloss Gods, it's going to be €100 or $100 for a single palette. Of course, that's not worth it. So I definitely feel that goes into it as well. So just because something is expensive for you doesn't mean that it's going to give you the quality you want. It's not going to give you the looks you want. Whereas I definitely feel that some people still think that just because something is expensive, they'll get better quality makeup. And like I mentioned before, makeup can only exist, like it only consists of a certain amount of ingredients. And a lot of those ingredients are incredibly cheap to put together. And a lot of formulas are tried and true and tested. So unless it's a brand that I feel is very innovative and they definitely are doing something differently that I don't have in my makeup collection yet, I'm willing to pay certain price points. But I've never tried a Tom Ford quad. I remember back in the day, was it called Mink? Tom Ford had a quad that everybody was raving about. And I remember putting that on my wish list, and I was like, I'm going to check this out, because at the time, I don't think the brand was available where I live. So I was taking a trip to France, and I was like, I'll find it when I go to France and see if I like it. Went to the counter, swatched it, and didn't like the quality at all. And I was like, I'm not going to pay €90 for a quad of eyeshadow that up on a swatch and just the first impression, I'm like, nah, I don't care how popular this is, but this is not going to be worth it. And I felt like that with quite a lot of my more expensive purchases. Because either like color stories weren't quite right for me, or there was a bit of a learning curve involved with some of the formulas. Those were my first experiences with Natasha Denona and Pat McGrath. My first Natasha Denona palette was the Lila, which is something I've decluttered since then, because the color story just wasn't quite it. And to then pay €125, which I think those larger palettes by Natasha Denona are easily $130 by now. It's just not worth it, And the same thing with Pat McGrath. My first Pat McGrath thing was this quad that I still have. I still have it because I love the colors. But it creased on me so terribly. And I was like, okay, the quad was only like 60 or 65 euros. So it wasn't like the end of the world. It wasn't like one of the motherships, which retail for like 135. if it would have been one of those things, I would have been very, very disappointed. But this, like, it started creasing and I couldn't figure it out. And then I found out that, it's fine as long as I put a bit of bronzer into the crease and then apply the rest of the shadows, I'm good. But, you have to go through a learning curve. But, if something is more expensive, I'm more likely to be willing to put more effort into the learning curve with a product than when there's something super affordable. Like if it's an Essence product and it doesn't blend and it's the wrong shade or it creases immediately, I'm like, yeah, this is not my product. It can go. And then I tend to declutter those a little bit more quickly than I do more high-end or luxury things, because I'm like, it was expensive. I want to make sure I got my money's worth and at least get some more use out of these products. Even though they don't work for me initially, I might want to put more effort into it. So I definitely feel that also changes our perception of quality in that sense. Like, we have different expectations of a product. At least I do. I don't know how it works for you, but I definitely do. Like, if I pay 130 euros for an eyeshadow palette, I want it to be good. I mean, I just had it the other day, actually. You'll see this really, really soon, but I went to Valencia in Spain, and they have Sephora there, and they had the new House Labs concealer. So I decided to swatch it, and then I looked at the price point. I was like, this concealer is 35 euros. And I was like, that's expensive for a concealer. That's a lot of money to spend on a concealer. But it's like, I like the House Labs foundation a lot. That one was also quite up there in price for a foundation. So I'm just hoping I will love this thing as much as everybody, as much as I like the foundation and as much as everybody is saying they love it as well. But if that's a disappointment because it's going to crease within 2 seconds and the shade oxidizes on me in like 50 shades of orange, and I'm not going to be super happy with that. You know what I mean? So I'm very often more disappointed in more expensive products that don't work for me than I am in more affordable things. Those I'm like, yeah, this sounds really terrible. I don't mean it in like an unsustainable way, but they're more like the throwaway products, you could say, whereas like, okay, didn't quite work for me. Well, it can go. I'm a little less fussed. But then again, with Essence and Catrice, I just buy whatever is new without really asking myself the question, is this the right product for me? Whereas with high-end products, I tend to be a lot more selective as well. With high-end products and luxury, because it is more expensive and because my budget isn't endless, I'm going to have to make certain choices. So with that House Labs concealer, it was like the only thing I bought on that trip. And I was like, I'm fine. It's good. I'm happy. So, but, with Essence and Catrice, for the price of that one concealer, I can buy like 5 or maybe 7 Essence and Catrice things. So it's easier to then just go like, oh, that wasn't really for me, and, it's fine. So I feel I'm a little less harsh of a critic when it comes to Essence and Catrice stuff. I'm a little less selective with my choices there. But that also means that I try a lot of things that just don't work for me. Like, I'll try, like, especially with Essence and Catrice, I like doing the lipstick reviews whenever they have new lipstick lines out, and I just buy the lipstick line. I don't ask myself the question, is this lipstick line going to be for me? I'm not going to ask myself the question, will these shades work for me? Because I do it to film content and I want to show you all the shades. So even if the shades may not work for me, they might work for someone else. And maybe you then have the information you need to take that decision. So there's definitely that element to it as well. So then I don't mind it as much either. So yeah, there's just different purposes I feel that we have for our makeup. But, as a regular makeup consumer as well, I think that, making better choices and taking along, like, am I looking for quality? Do I want the experience of that counter? Do I want pretty packaging? Those are all going to factor into how much you're willing to pay for makeup. But if it's just performance you're looking for, then I think the drugstore has really good things. Like I mentioned, Essence, Catrice, Kiko Milano, Elf. They do so much. Milani, Wet n Wild. They do some really solid products for sure. And I've, like, in recent years, I've also been trying some other EU-based drugstore brands that I can find online. So I've tried some Eveline Cosmetics. They're Polish. Some Finnish brands I've tried as well, Lumine. And they do some really lovely things. And I was very pleasantly surprised with what I was able to try from Wycon, which is an Italian brand that I had never tried before until I bought some products when I was in Florence. So I think that there's a lot of really good makeup around. But if you want to see, like, and this is why I greatly dislike the fact that the Netherlands is so barren when it comes to the makeup realm. It's just so difficult for me to be able to swatch anything before I buy it unless I travel, which of course is also not realistic for everyone. So being able to try products in store, swatching them, feeling the product on your skin is going to give you so much information to how something might wear. And that's, of course, something that you cannot always do. So that there's that aspect of it as well. So I definitely wish we could find more products in store over here. That would be so much helpful to the makeup I buy, and it would lead me to make fewer mistakes. I'm definitely sure of that as well. But yeah, this was a bit of a ranty, sort of quick little video this week where I wanted to chat to you about how I feel about makeup and the price point of makeup compared to the quality. Just because something is expensive doesn't mean it's good, but brands have their reasons for charging the prices. It doesn't have to do with the actual product itself. As I mentioned, the ingredients are super cheap, but it definitely does go into, you know, how much marketing do they do? Do they hire celebrities to promote their products? Essentially, that's what you pay for when you buy a Charlotte Tilbury product, I feel. Like, Charlotte Tilbury is fine quality-wise, but I have things from Kiko I like better than a lot of my Charlotte Tilbury stuff, and that's why I ended up decluttering most of my Charlotte Tilbury stuff over time. So expensive doesn't mean good, cheap doesn't mean bad. We need to go through the effort of trying to find what's right for us, and we always need to bear in mind what we are willing to pay and look at our budgets and our, like, location and our ability to shop for makeup. And then we have to make our choices every couple of months or however often you shop for makeup. I tend to do it monthly. And then you need to pick and choose what you think might be right for you. And I hope that my channel can be helpful in finding some of those gems at the drugstore. That's definitely one of the things that I like doing and why I like trying these more affordable brands. Yes, I declutter a lot of it in the end, but that's because not everything I buy can work for me. So yeah, there's definitely that. So I really hope you enjoyed watching this video today. Please thumbs up the video if you liked it. Subscribe to the channel if you'd like to see more by me. I make several videos every single week, 4 times to be exact, and that means I will be back with a new video very soon. So hope to see you in my next one. Bye-bye!